Hey everyone, hope you're all having a fantastic day, and welcome back to part 4 of ranking my commander decks. By now you probably know the drill, so we're just going to keep chipping away at the unranked legends. So here we go. Maelstrom Wanderer is a self-contained win, basically. If he resolves, the value he doesn't even have to resolve. The value he provides from the double cascade takes over games very quickly, since you're usually loading these lists with big bombs or ramp. So even if he's removed, you can just cast him again pretty easily. Maelstrom Wanderer decks are usually a pretty big target at the table, since once it comes down, it's gonna win very soon. So you basically have between turn 1 and 6 to take out the Maelstrom Wanderer table. It was a powerful commander back in the day, and it still is. There's a player in one of my current play groups that has a Maelstrom Wanderer deck, and sometimes it flounders and doesn't do anything, but more often than not, he just assembles a board of big green, red, and blue monsters and just smashes the table. I don't think it's a problem commander, but it's not a very inspired or interesting one nowadays. It's a good commander to recommend to new players, since it's very straightforward and it's big and splashy. I ran him in a couple lists, and I put him at the helm of one of his own lists one time, and it played out how you see every other Maelstrom Wanderer deck play out. The bright side is it usually can win fairly quick and doesn't dirtle in the value too much, and being able to give your team haste is a good way to close out the game even on the turn Maelstrom Wanderer comes down. So for that, I give it some points. I don't foresee myself wanting to build around Maelstrom Wanderer. My personal experience with him, I'm probably going to put him at a... I've said some marginally positive things about him, but I think my gut reaction is putting him at D, because I'm not interested in this generic ramp value strategy. It's pretty mindless. Marath was a face commander in the second cycle of Precons Wizards ever printed, and the deck itself was focused on beasts specifically, and Marath is a cool Swiss Army knife type of commander. It leans into +1 counter strategies, moving those +1 counters around. It can ping creatures or players, or it can make you a token, which is really cool. I really like the first clause it has when it enters the battlefield equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it, which plays really nice with the commander tax element. So it's less of a feel bad, like Marath dies, and yeah, it stinks I have to recast him, but hey, when I pay 5, it comes in with 5 on 1 counter, so it gives you more flexibility. I've seen combo lists with Marath. I've seen token lists. I've seen planeswalker lists. There's a lot of interesting directions you can go with it. I built I think it was a token list. I had the precon, so I played the precon list, but once I upgraded it, I focused on the token side of things. And it was pretty mean, I would say. It had Impact Tremors and Perforos in it. Things like that would ping players when tokens would come down. If I built it again today, I'd probably take it a different direction. I like Marath. Gives me good memories of my early days of Magic. I'll probably put Marath at a B. I don't know if it's super high up on as far as legends I'm pining to build around, but I've had some good times with Marath, so happy with B. Marwyn the Nurturer. I built Marwyn. You can only really build her as an elf ball commander. She's really good at turboing that strategy just with her the sheer mana generation, and green is packed with untapped creature effects, so you can get multiple activations with her ability each turn and just pump out all these a giant board of elves and overrun, and she can get big enough to the point where she can threaten people with Voltron damage if you want to. She's very good. Can set up some combos with her with things like Umbral Mantle, the Sword of Perunes. Does that work? I'll have to look that up, but I think that works. Like Mono Green Azuri, very straightforward. Mono Green Elves. I think I liked her a little bit more than Azuri, just in seeing her power add up and netting you more mana each time you cast an elf was kind of exciting, or seeing an elf token come in even. So I think the way to play the deck was more interesting. But overall, still an elf deck. Probably in the middle for me. Played out the same way. Oh, I built her. I'm remembering why I built her. I built her as a Star Commander. So Star format, for those of you who haven't heard of this, it's a 5-player commander variant, and we started playing it because more often than not we would have 5 players, and that's just kind of an awkward number, so you have to play a specialized version like Kingslayer or Star format if you want to play less political. And Star format is it's you versus 2 of the other players that are the farthest away from you on the table. So if you're sitting in a circle, you and the 2 people on either side of you, those are your allies, quote unquote. And then the other 2 people, the farthest away from you, are your enemies. So you win once those 2 players are eliminated, your enemy players. It's pretty fun. It's just a different way to experience the game, and it's kind of nice not to be up against 3 or 4 other opponents. A little more manageable because your allies are kind of helping you out too. They don't want to help you too much, because if you knock out your 2 enemy opponents before they get around to knocking out theirs, then you win. You don't share the victory. So I took that concept and I developed 5 decks for the Star format, and I took it the mono green direction because I kind of wanted it to like highlight the strengths and weaknesses of each of the mono colors. So Marwyn was my submission for mono green, and you can kind of see the list right here, your usual stuff that you would expect for a mono green elves list. And yeah, it was good. It was consistent. I had tutors in here. I had ramp. Did everything you wanted it to do. Genesis wave. I love resolving a big old Genesis wave. And since Concordant Crossroads is really expensive, I threw in a Chroma's Memorial in here just because it was in my collection, and that was a way to put my opponents out of their misery once the board was flooded. So yeah, it was... I have good memories about it because the cycle of decks I worked on for the Star format was really fun. So maybe that'll... Let's go back to the ranking. I'll put it at... I might move it up to B just because of the Star format was really fun. So if you're curious about the other commanders I built around for the Star format, it looks like I started with Feldon, but then I moved it to Perforos, which we haven't hit yet, then Traxos, Nezahal, and Gonti, who we have talked about. So another point for Gonti, which was fun. And I might post the links to the list in the description if you're interested. Massacre Girl is a great versatile commander that kind of slots into a lot of mono black lists. From the command zone, I liked having her as a board wipe in the command zone that left you with a body. And setting up her chain effect isn't actually that bad since you can kind of have control of that. You just make a few 1/1s, and that's usually enough to get the chain going and wipe everything out. And the -1 status effect gets around indestructible and pro colors, like pro black, for example. Yeah, and she has a keyword, so you can suit her up with equipment, get in for commander damage a little bit easier. I don't recall feeling strongly one way or another about her as a commander when I built a deck around her. I think it was just a try once and move on to something else. I still like her in the 99, but as commander, I think she's just in the middle for me. Mayael the Anima was the backup commander for Marath, who we talked about a little bit ago. Kind of a big, splashy effect. I don't really see Mayael anywhere nowadays. I think there's other alternative commanders in these colors that can do similar things or just require less setup because there was just a lot of parts you had to get right and just expensive to get going. So I think she's a little slow. I don't recall having success with her when I built her. Probably put her in D. Ooh, Meren. Meren was in the 2015 Commander Precon cycle. And Meren was the surprise commander for me from that set. I said in a previous video when we talked about the Simic Azuri that deck kind of had my attention at first, and I picked up Meren on the side of just I wanted 2 decks to try out, and Meren looked kind of interesting. And boy howdy, did this open my eyes to how cool graveyard strategies were. Getting Meren out, and I think one of my earliest games with her, and this was just the pre-con, getting the Secure Tribe Elder out, and just even that simple loop of getting Secure Tribe Elder back turn after turn, and ramping, and going into crazier stuff, and sacrifice synergies, and aristocrat effects, kind of just blew my mind and really opened my eyes to how the graveyard could be used as an extension of your hand. Very influential on my current preferences and of strategies in Commander. And I still love the graveyard to this day, and that kind of translates to my love of Feldon, I talked about earlier, and just the take mono red gives, Reanimator in that kind of shell. And yeah, Meren's I'll always have fond memories for Meren. As a commander today, I think I don't even know if she's a problem per se. She has a reputation for being very good because she is very good. I think there might be other Reanimator type commanders that are stronger than her even, but like her ability to grind out games is very, very good. She encourages a certain style of play of you're looking to, like I said earlier with Secure Tribe Elder, you're just looking to find a creature to continue to loop turn after turn and grind your opponents down. Like Fleshbag Marauder or Ravenous Chupacabra. There's probably more crazy toys for her nowadays. I don't think I'll be revisiting her anytime soon, but just for her incredible influence on me as a Magic player, I think she definitely deserves an A tier. Undead Mikaeus. He might have been the first from scratch commander list I ever built, funny enough. My friend who got me into Magic was a spikier player and recommended at the time it was a $15 budget Mikaeus list that was all about ramping Mikaeus out and setting up some kind of undying loop with a persist creature and draining people out one way or the other. And that's all it would do. That's all it did. If Mikaeus got removed or was kept off the battlefield, the deck did nothing. And I recall winning with it once and seeing what the combo did and decided, oh, I don't like dedicated combo decks. I'm not against combos in general, but decks that all they're trying to do is combo off and win, that wasn't something I decided I want to gravitate towards. So Mikaeus is an F. I play Mikaeus in a lot of black decks. I think he's great in the 99, gives great resilience, and makes your board hard to deal with. But as a commander, everyone knows what you're trying to do when they see a Mikaeus deck, but it's been a while since I have seen one out in the wild, so maybe he's not an issue anymore. Mishra, Eminent One. This is a current deck of mine. I picked up the pre-con, so I thought I liked the Brothers War story, and I thought the fact that they revisited it was really cool. And I feel like Urza gets all the attention, so Mishra was in the Grixis colors, which I'd becoming more and more fond of, and the pre-con itself was super cool, had a lot of interesting strategies. It's struggled sometimes drawing the right pieces in sequence, but I think for a unique factor alone, it definitely delivers. I think there's some cool stuff you can do with his copy ability, and where I decided to take the deck was focus on vehicles, and namely the Warhammer vehicles, which are all powerhouses in this deck. If I can find one of them and get a couple turns of copying it with Mishra and getting a chance to swing with it, the game's usually over. Where the deck struggles is sometimes drawing those pieces, and I generally don't run tutors. I know there's a lot of tutors in black and blue, and red even, but my group tends not to lean into tutors. We kind of like the variability. So I don't run tutors, and which is fine. I don't need the deck to pop off on all cylinders each game, but more often than not, I have good games with the Mishra deck. Mishra's really cool. I think it's a deck my opponents enjoy playing against. It's powerful, but it does cool stuff you don't see every day. I've definitely gotten some compliments about the deck, which is fun. I would put Mishra in A tier. I plan to keep him built for the foreseeable future and keep testing him out. And yeah, it has artifacts and copying shenanigans, all sorts of stuff I like. So would definitely recommend him. Ooh, this is topical. Miss Bumbleflower. She was the one that caught my attention during spoiler season for Bloomburrow, the precons. Initially, Bello the raccoon I was most excited about, but once I saw what he was doing, it kind of disappointed me. I was hoping they were taking him a different direction. So I kind of turned to Miss Bumbleflower. I liked her ability to be a group hug strategy, but also propel yourself ahead with evasion or 1/1 counters and giving yourself card advantage, which is cool. I had a couple games with the precon. It kind of leans into the +1 counter beatdown side of things, which is fine and fun. I appreciate the alternate win cons they put in the precon, like Simic Ascendancy and the 20 Toad. And I'm like, all right, cool, let's get this upgraded. Let's try something out. I've tried several different iterations of upgrades and strategies with this deck, kind of leaning into the group hug side of things, mainly providing card draw. I saw a really great video that talked about group hug and they said successful group hug decks actively manage the flow of one resource, in this case card draw, which I thought was really good advice. I think you're more likely to fall behind if you're providing card draw and both card draw and mana generation. So leaned into the card draw side of things, and it just I guess I envisioned me being a little more vocal and interactive with my opponents, like, hey, I'll do this for you, or I'll give you a card if you do this for me, or like leave me alone. But at the end of the day, when she's out and you cast a spell, the card has to go somewhere. If no one's like willing to deal with you, then you're probably just going to target the person who's farthest behind, which is fine. But yeah, it just didn't have the feature or the feel that I wanted out of this deck. So she's still a work in progress. She's been more of a challenge than I've planned. I don't really want to lean into the generic 1/1 counter stuff. I mean, it's a way to close out games, I guess. I've seen interesting ideas from other people. One creator really leaned into a bunch of Cantropy, 1-drop stuff, trying to take advantage of her 2 spells a turn clause just to keep your hand full, and turning her into like a Voltron finisher, which is interesting. I've seen more group hug stuff. I'm currently now leaning into kind of the Bloomburrow flavor, and my current list that I haven't tested out yet is running. My restriction was building around kind of the woodland creature type a little bit. So avoiding any like humanoid things. There's some exceptions. Like I have like some Ajani planeswalkers in it, which he's a cat, so still a animal. And yeah, just trying that out. I'm a big Redwall fan of the book series, which is what got me excited for Bloomburrow in the first place. So I think I want if I'm going to keep the deck around, I want to kind of be reminded of that set in general. So I'd like to pick up some more creatures from the main Bloomburrow set to add into the deck and try it out that way. So more to come, I guess. She's kind of in flux right now. I'd probably put her at C. She's been pretty up in the air, honestly, which makes me sad. I was hoping I would just love her out of the gate. Muldrotha. So if Meren was the gateway commander that got me into the graveyard strategy, Muldrotha pretty much locked that strategy into my wheelhouse. Taking all permanent types and making them recastable from your graveyard is a heck of a thing. I'm actually curious if Muldrotha still sees play today, because back in the day, it was very good, very resilient. Even for a 6-drop commander, you don't need it out that long to accumulate some serious value. And I really liked setting up different card types to go into my graveyard, or running cards that ran multiple types, like enchantment creatures, artifact creatures, just to maximize the value of what I could get back from the graveyard each turn. Very grindy deck, but boy howdy, it was fun. Really, really liked Muldrotha. I mainly took it apart because it was probably too good, and I don't think my opponents had a very fun time watching me dirtle and keep bringing back permanents that removed my other opponent's permanents and just grinding the table down. I'd probably put Muldrotha in B. I think B's okay. Realistically, not going to revisit. Had a lot of fun with it. Multani is I still see Multani in precons today, and Helm in its own deck. It's very good. It's payoff for landfall decks. Can helm its own deck very well. Goes in the 99 for any ramp strategy. It's recursive. Kind of does everything you want for a land payoff when it comes to beating people's faces in. I built Multani once. It was pretty straightforward. Just ramp a lot, and you have a giant creature to start punching people with. I liked Multani in that it kind of got around the landfall problem, in that if your landfall decks a lot of times, sometimes you are drawing all the ramp stuff, but none of the payoffs, like your card draw or things, Rampaging Bolas, things that are making tokens for you, developing your board. Well, Multani is in the command zone waiting for you, and so even if you keep drawing ramp spells, Multani's going to keep getting bigger. And yeah, so a resilient Voltron-style commander. I put Multani at B. Stands apart from the other mono-green commanders that I've played with. Nahiri. I had a Nahiri on this list mainly because I had her precon. I wasn't a huge fan of the precon. Just had some awkward draws, and yeah, even when I tried upgrading her a little bit, I was pretty new to Magic at the time, so I didn't have the greatest equipment support to even make the deck shine, so I think the play experience was pretty mediocre. I'd probably put her at D even today. There's a million other equipment commanders that are more interesting, and I'd rather be playing in Boros anyway if I was going into the equipment strategy. Najeela. I played Najeela probably before she became a mainstay in competitive EDH. I didn't build her as a competitive EDH deck. I did a restriction where it was a Gruul warrior list, so only red and green creatures, and that was I liked the restriction, but in general it was still really good. Just the free warrior token that comes in with each warrior when you attack, very strong. I'm sure she's still very strong today if you played her at a casual table, because those warriors trigger off of each other, or those warrior tokens trigger off of each other on future combats. I recall I recall the game or two I played with the Gruul version of this deck. I was basically holding out until I could draw. I think it was Druid's Repository, the one that lets you store up charge counters, and you can remove charge counters to add a color of any, add a mana of any color. Which, if you get 5 of those, then you can activate her ability over and over again. So it played out to the same way each time. I'd put her at D. I don't think she was a mistake to build. I probably won't. No, I definitely won't build her again. She's just a different power level than I want to be experiencing, and I don't think she's would be fun for my opponents. So Narset, OG Narset. From Khan's block originally, yes, Khan's a Tarkir. A set that's very near and dear to my heart. I liked the tricolor cycle of legends in that set. Narset, she's big, she's splashy. Not a very fair commander if you built her right. A lot of extra turn spells. A lot of just big dumb things. The fact that it's any of the cards you exile with her ability, it's not just restricted to one, is pretty bonkers. I would imagine she still leads a very scary deck today. I don't think she's not CEDH level powerful, but she's probably too strong for casual decks today. When I ran her, I wasn't even running extra turn stuff, but I recall her being very good. I don't think I won the 1 or 2 games I played with her because people are trying to remove her or remove you before you can get up to her, because back in those days 6 mana for Jeskai was a lot, so you're all in on the rampant to get her up there, or to get up to 6 mana and cast her and hopefully haste her and start profiting right away. Yeah, I don't like the attention she gets, and I think if you want to build her efficiently, you have to run a lot of the mean cards and the ones that people don't generally like to play against. So I think she's another D. A lot of D's this video, I feel like. One of the Nehebs, Neheb Dreadhorde champion. I like this guy better in the 99. I run him in Feldon as a way to discard cards and refill my hand and net some mana. I like the stats. The trample's nice. He didn't super impress me at the helm of his own deck. There's probably some relentless assaults loops you can set up with him. He's kind of an option if you don't like his other mono red version, which we'll talk about next. He's probably a good like powered down version to let you focus on maybe some equipment stuff or maybe more Voltron kind of a strategy to keep refueling your hand and or using his ability to have you keep refilling your hand. I probably put him at C. Just didn't have much of a impact on me. The art is really cool, though, I will say. But this art, though, is metal as heck. Neheb the Eternal. Recently, a card of interest to the community because they had errated words. Oh, the raise of beginning of your post-combat main phase. That's... I think they changed it to start of your second main phase. Something like that. They shortened it. And it essentially shut off Neheb's ability. Or like you would only get it once. And when you build Neheb, everyone runs aggravated assault to get infinite combats and just keep chaining combats together and keep netting mana until you either win through combat damage or burning people out with the big X spell, what have you. I didn't enjoy my time with Neheb just because I think he's a super cool creature. Love him in the 99. He's in Feldon also. I have both mono red Nehebs in Feldon. He definitely belongs in decks like that, but at the head of his own deck, it's moving toward one direction generally, and your opponents know what's going to happen if they let you have one good turn with him, because that's what you're kind of doing, is building toward this crazy turn. So I feel like he just gets shut down early and often by the table. And when I built him, it was kind of that experience. So I'd probably put him at D. Nayali. Nayali was a big surprise for me. I'm not someone who gravitates toward Boros. We've talked about a few Boros commanders on this tier list, and they're generally not something I either super enjoy or gravitate towards. But Nayali, when I picked up her precon and started playing with it, I just ended up really appreciating her. And I feel like she kind of got buried because the amount of Boros Legends coming out in the last few years is absolutely bananas. And they all kind of have a different iteration of themselves, whether that's equipment or tokens. So they all kind of blur together. But her ability to give tokens, double strike, and also providing you with card advantage is really good, and it helps you hold out to the mid to late game. So I feel like Boros traditionally has struggles with running out of gas, and then after a board wipe has a really hard time rebuilding. Nayali helps with some of that. I have had a lot of fun experimenting with the 4 Mirrodin equipments. Some of them have come in the deck. I've added a few extras. Yeah, because you're not necessarily wanting to run a bunch of 1/1s. You're wanting to run bigger tokens or buffing those tokens up somehow. So you have like Inspiring Leader in there. You have... Oh, I have Rite of the Raging Storm, which is an absolute hoot with this list. Having a 5/1 double strike is a lot of fun. And yeah, I still have her built. I thought the backup commander for her was super cool, which I think he's on this list, Othari the Phoenix. So we'll talk about him later. It's on the artwork, though, which is really cool in the background. So yeah, Nayali's really good, really resilient. I think she surprised my play group with how good she is. And that's kind of my home for some of the extra combat spells I have. I have a Savage Beating hanging around, Response, Resurgence, things like that. Those are good ways to close out the game, and you don't even need that big of a board state to do it. And yeah, I like her a lot. She gives me a home for some of the Boros stuff I've accumulated over the years. Got an Aurelia in there. I would put her at A. A Boros commander at A. It's crazy. Nezahal. Hey, another star commander that I built around originally. Nezahal was another surprise. I originally built around him because I didn't want to do blue control necessarily. I really liked the Elder Dinosaurs from Ixalan and hadn't really seen Nezahal get a ton of attention, so I wanted to build around him. I like the Loch Ness Monster too, and definitely gives off those kinds of vibes. And Nezahal was probably the most surprising deck out of that star experiment I did, so I can pull it up actually. So yeah, Nezahal, it was a bunch of ramp, get him out there. So I point to all the non-ramp cards, Soul Ring, Mind Stone, wanted to get Nezahal out, and then just a bunch of ways to protect him. Give him unblockable, start smacking people, get him to 21 commander damage. The janky cards like Power Matrix. It was just a bunch of cool stuff. And despite Nezahal being a 7-drop commander, it won so many games that it got to play in. Was very resilient. As long as you had 3 cards in hand, you could dodge, spot removal, board wipes, and he would just come back. And then people have to play their non-creature spells, which would fill your hand up back again. And you don't have no maximum hand size. It just kind of did everything. Nezahal, super fun. Kind of up there with Danitha in that, Mono White Danitha in that I had no real expectation of it doing anything impressive or crazy, and it just kind of ticked off all the boxes and was just kind of a force to deal with. And I think it would still be a force to deal with if I rebuilt it today. And I've been thinking about rebuilding it lately. The Legendary Creature podcast guys, in their pre-con series, they had one on Nezahal, and it sounded like a lot of fun and had some cool tech in it that I'd be interested to try out. But as for my past experience with Nezahal, goes in A. Nikki B, the Ravager. This Nicol Bolas appealed to me in that it was cool to see the Flipwalker archetype applied to the big baddie of Magic. And the card's very splashy, especially his Planeswalker side. And he comes down reasonably, in the early game. I built him. This is when I was kind of getting into Grixis. I originally had built a Thraxamundar list, which will be further down the way. But I wanted to helm... I wanted a way to run all 3 of the Amonkhet Grixis gods, Scorpion god, Locust god, Scarab god, all in one shell, because I thought they were so cool. And they were kind of under Thraxamundar. Then I got Nicol Bolas for my birthday or Christmas. I think it was my birthday. My roommate got him for me. I'm like, oh, he's cheaper and kind of fills in some of the empty spaces a little bit nicer. So let's make him the legend. And I had this really, really janky list that was -1 strategy and token strategy and zombie strategy to like accommodate all 3 of the Amonkhet gods, and it just wasn't very cohesive of a strategy because it was pulling in 3 different directions. I thought the flavor was amazing because Nicol Bolas, flips Amonkhet on its head and releases those 3 gods. So I thought that was A+ flavor. But as far as playing the deck, it had a hard time doing anything. It kind of too much of a mad scientist experiment. I then tried focusing in on more of the typical Grixis discard wheel stuff and maybe left Locust God in the deck or Scarab God, something like that. Kind of more of a Grixis control shell, and it just wasn't as fun. He definitely, I don't think I could put him at C tier because he definitely made an impression on me. I really liked the flavor of the 3 Amonkhet gods build. I didn't like the Grixis control wheel stuff. I'd probably put that in an F. But the original intent of the deck, here's what I'll do, and I'll probably forget when I get to them. But I think Thraxamundar, that version, I would put at a D because it was just too clunky. But Nicol Bolas, I'll put it good. Even though the strategy was good. I'm bending my own rules on this one, but I don't think he belongs in a C because he's either a deck. It's either a strategy that I don't plan to revisit soon, but another strategy that I had good memories with. So that's a weird one. Cool card, though. Nikara, Lair Scavenger. Nikara was paired with Yannick. It was a precon for Ikoria. How do you pronounce that? Ikoria, I think, yeah. Here's Yannick. I didn't buy the precon. I think I just picked them up because I wanted to try them out. I had a hard time with these guys. I wanted to lean into Yannick blinking things and distributing counters, but the blinking resets counters too, so it was kind of hard to get a handle on, and I don't think I invested enough time in the strategy or the deck list to get it pared down to what I wanted it to do. So it was pretty forgettable, and I wasn't super in love with what the deck was doing, so it didn't stick around very long. So I think they both go in C. Nissa was one of the Flipwalkers in Origins, which I have fond memories of that set. I thought the Flipwalkers were really cool. I actually cracked a Jace from a pack, and at the time, it was pretty early when the set was coming out, so people knew he was good, and he was probably selling for $40. So I just, like a fool, I traded him in, and however long later, year later, he's selling for over $100. So I missed out on that one, but I have Anissa. She was my go-to mono green commander for a long time. I even blinged it out a bit, bought some textless harmonizes or textless harmonize and rampant growth, things like that. Just run all the splashy green stuff, and I really liked her. She pulled a land out of your library and basically an extra card or ramp for her +1. When I flipped her, I don't think I ever did anything besides +1. She was very much just a value engine in the command zone, and I guess she could soak up some damage because my opponents would have to dedicate creatures to remove her. That would otherwise go at me, but I don't think I've ever ultimated her. I've probably downticked her for the 4/4 token ability just when I needed to develop my board a little bit. Otherwise, yeah, it was a fun list. He can kind of accommodate anything. I've seen mono green storm list with her with like hurricane finishers, which is funny. Mine was more generic, ramp up, big crazy stuff. I probably ran some Eldrazi's for finisher or whatever you do. I like I like how unassuming she is. I don't think she's super scary if you're looking at her just at face value, but the incremental advantage she gives you over the length of a game is really nice. I'd probably put her at A. All right, guys, I think we're going to end it here for this part. Thanks for sticking around and running through this list with me. Been enjoying it so far. Looks like we have 67 left to go, so probably a few more parts left in this series. But until next time, guys, this is Addison signing off.